एसोसिएशन फॉर सोशल एंड इकोनॉमिक इक्वालिटी की ओर से आयोजित सोशल वर्क कास्ट एंड डॉक्टर अंबेडकर्स आइडियल सोसाइटी इस विषय पर आयोजित चर्चा में आप सभी का स्वागत है। सोशल वर्क कास्ट एंड डॉक्टर अंबेडकर्स आइडियल सोसाइटी इस विषय पर चर्चा करने के लिए आज हमारे साथ उपस्थित है रिस्पेक्टेड प्रोफेसर अवथी रमैया, डीन इक्वल अपॉर्चुनिटी सेंटर एंड फैकल्टी, टाटा इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ सोशल साइंसेस, मुंबई। आपका एसोसिएशन की ओर से बहुत बहुत स्वागत है सर। वेलकम सर। इस चर्चा की अध्यक्षता कर रहे हैं तथा आयोजन में जिनकी मुख्य भूमिका है respected Professor Dr. Sukhadeo, former chairman of UGC and ICSSR and president of Association for Social and Economic Equality. आपका एसोसिएशन की ओर से बहुत बहुत स्वागत है सर। वेलकम। इस चर्चा के सफलतापूर्ण आयोजन के लिए प्रोफेसर विमल थोरात मैडम, डॉक्टर त्रिलोक हजारे सर, डॉक्टर गौतम कामले सर, आपका स्वागत है। आप सभी पार्टिसिपेंट अलग अलग राज्यों से हमारे साथ जुड़े हैं, आप सभी एसोसिएशन की ओर से बहुत बहुत स्वागत है। आज का विषय है डॉक्टर सोशल वर्क कास्ट एंड डॉक्टर अंबेडकर आइडियल सोसाइटी। इस विषय के चर्चा के आयोजन की मुख्य भूमिका रखने हेतु मैं प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ टुडेज प्रोग्राम रिस्पेक्टेड डॉक्टर सुखदेव थोरात सर को इनवाइट करती हूँ।
Good afternoon to everybody. Welcome to Avatthi Ramaiah, who has agreed to speak on this very important theme. Association for Social and Economic Equality has been organizing lectures through this webinar last, I think this must be around 55th lecture or close to 60 lecture for last 1.5 years. I think Avatthi Ramaiah had come once, I think, on this program. But today he is going to talk to us and share his view on a very important topic. महत्वपूर्ण विषय है वो सोशल वर्क कास्ट एंड डॉक्टर अंबेडकर्स आइडिया ऑफ ideal society or Dr. Ambedkar's idea on social work and caste interlinkages. A very, very important topic. I think Dr. Ambedkar was concerned about the whether the philanthropy as well as the social work, social action on the part of the civic society will be secular and universal, or it will remain confined within the borders of caste or religion or ethnicity. That was his concern. And his major hypothesis, of course, at that point of time was that the social work and social service is constrained by the caste system. Therefore, the social work by and large remain confined to people within the caste or within the religion or within the ethnic group. At some places, he compared the social work and funding for social work in India and USA. Given this hypothesis about Dr. Ambedkar, because of the very nature of the caste system is based on the principle which resulted to isolation and exclusion of groups who remain isolated. Because of these thoughts of Ambedkar and his hypothesis, we thought that it will be interesting to share, listen to the people who are working on social work, one of the top institute in the country. And Dr. Ramaiah has done work earlier also. Therefore, we requested him to share his view, and today he is going to share his view on this particular interconnection between social work, caste, and Dr. Ambedkar's concept of ideal society. We look forward to listen to him. Thank you very much. Vidya, please carry on the program further.
Thank you, sir. इस चर्चा पर चर्चा करने के लिए प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर अवत्ती सर जी को इनवाइट करूंगी, लेकिन उससे पहले मैं मिस संगीता मैडम जो टाटा इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ सोशल साइंस से हमारे साथ उपस्थित है, मैं संगीता मैडम से अनुरोध करती हूँ कि आप डॉक्टर अवथी सर का इंट्रोडक्शन दें।
Hello.
Yes, madam.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. So good afternoon, everybody. First, I would like to thanks to ASEE to giving me opportunity to introduce today's speaker. So I'm super excited to introduce our speaker for today's event. So today's our speaker, Dr. Avatthi Ramaiah, joined the Tata Institute of Social Science, Mumbai as a lecturer in the Unit for Social Policy and Social Welfare Administration in July 1991. In 2007, he became the professor at the Center for Study of Social Exclusion and Inclusive Policy, CASTE. Since June 2021, he has been the Dean, Equal Opportunity Center, CASTE. He obtained his MA Social Work from the Loyola College, University of Madras in 1984. He obtained his MPhil in Population Studies in 1987 and PhD in Sociology in 1999 from the School of Social Sciences, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. So his academic interest pertains to the broad area of caste and development, and he has published extensively, including 2 books. His books include Laws for Dalit Rights and Dignity and Contemporary Relevance Ambedkar's Thought. So Professor Ramaiah was a senior Fulbright scholar at the Department of Anthropology, Columbia University. In 2010, he was a visiting fellow at the Wilberforce Institute for the Study of Slavery and the Emancipation, University of Hull, UK. In 2013, he was visiting fellow at the Asia Research Center, London School of Economics. In 2015, Professor Ramaiah was a visiting fellow at the Center for the Study of Social Systems. Many universities within and outside India. Some of the universities outside.
Thank you. I think this is good enough.
Okay, so please welcome, sir, and I would like to invite you to deliver your lecture on the today's topic, social work, caste, and Dr. Ambedkar's ideal society.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the generous introduction. I think, like all of you, I'm also inspired by Professor Thorat, because probably I was also one of the few privileged students. Being a student of JNU, I was also, he was not only a teacher, he was also warden in the hostel I was staying, Kaveri hostel, for some time. Professor Thorat has been an inspiration not only for his scholarly work, he has been an inspiration also for his look. All of us used to wonder what a handsome man we have got as a warden. Every day, morning and evening, he used to go with some lovely dogs, just go with that and look like a feudal lord. For a long time, I was under the impression he must be very, very, some feudal fellow. He managed to sit here for a time pass. But then in the process of my PhD reading, I happened to read one book, Identity and Adulthood, because Professor Thorat has written innumerable number of articles and books. I don't know whether he remembers I'm referring, where he has written his own article about his own experience of how he kind of faced when he went to a marriage ceremony and he was having meal and there was some problem. A vivid portrayal of experience in upper caste wedding ceremony really made me think, my God, my impression totally changed. So somebody from such a background is not only a scholar, but the general stereotype in South Indian context, Dalit means Kala, Chota, and all attributes I had and I continue to have. But here is one professor totally different. That way he is not qualified in any way to be called as a so-called scheduled caste, whatever. So that doubt many people have even today. But that apart, I am very thankful to Professor Thorat for this kind invitation. Any invitation for a lecture from a teacher is always very, very, one considers a great honor. So I really consider this invitation from Professor Thorat as a great honor. And I'm sure as a student, whenever we mess up, he will pardon as a teacher. With that introductory note, let me begin. I'm not in social work school in Tata Institute, but again, I'm thankful to Thorat because I'm attached to a center called Center for Study of Social Inclusion and Exclusive, Social Exclusion Inclusive Policy, which is again a contribution of Professor Thorat. As a chairman of the UGC, he established more than 40 odd centers and they are still functioning, although there's a lot of challenges. So when I joined Tata Institute, I wrote one article on social work. It was titled The Plight to Social Profession, and I believe that article still referred widely. So I thought when Professor Thorat called me, what can you speak on? I thought of, looking at this very paper in the present context, and especially in the what Ambedkar spoke on caste and its impact. As we all know that Ambedkar has not written anything directly on social profession as such, but here we are trying to draw a linkage between caste and social professions. So my lecture would basically try to answer some of the basic questions with respect to what is social work, what are its ideals and mandates, how it wants to achieve those ideals. The Indian social work, in other ways, the Brahminic social work and indigenous social work, or social work of indigenous people of India. How far do all value the universal ideals, these social work? Can caste ideals and the universal ideals of social work coexist? Are the Indian social workers free from caste prejudices? Are the Indian social workers ready to take up the cause of the victims of caste, going beyond their caste prejudice and pride? Possibilities of making social justice the core principle of social work as done in the Western society. Possibilities of helping Indian social workers to free themselves from the notions of caste and caste prejudices. Dr. Ambedkar's ideal society be a part of social work, and few questions, few little bit of discussion on ways forward. So broadly, this is what I have in mind. First, with regard to social work, I know that many of the participants are from social work background. So what I may be sharing may be very rudimentary at the basics, but in order to connect the principles of social work with the principles of caste, we seem to have no option but to at least touch base with the basics of social work. So it is for that purpose I like to state a few things, the basics of social work. As you know, according to the International Federation of Social Workers, social work is a practice. It's a practice-based profession and an academic discipline that promotes social change and development, social cohesion, and empowerment, liberation of people. Now, the very definition of social work, we can draw so many things as to how they are directly linked to issues of oppression and exclusion and marginalizations. So it is an academic discipline that promotes social change and development, social cohesion, and empowerment and liberation of people. I think this very definition helps us to see how the issue of caste is close to social work profession should be. It's a profession concerned with helping individuals, families, groups, and communities to enhance their individuals and collective well-being. In short, it is a profession that helps people to help themselves. It's a profession that helps people to help themselves. The principle of helping people help themselves is based on the assumption that people do have the potential to meet their basic needs. I like to underline that very point. That very premise of the principle of social work, which says that help the people help themselves, basically reflects the fact that the assumption of the social work is that people do have the potential to meet their basic needs. They only have to be helped to realize those potential and to expand their capability so as to improve their circumstances and environment and ultimately achieve their freedom. Aims to help them develop their skills and their ability to use their resources and of the community to solve their own problems. That's what Avatthi also talks about. We'll just look at the social work values and the principles of social work. Social workers need to work towards the highest possible standard of professional integrity. This was recognized in 2014 by the International Federation of Social Workers and the International Association of Schools of Social Work in global definition of social work. So, looking at closely the principles of social work. The first principle is recognition of the inherent dignity of humanity. So the first principle of social work says social workers recognize and respect the inherent dignity and worth of all human beings in attitude, word, and deed. We respect all persons, but we challenge belief and actions of those persons who devalue or stigmatize themselves or other persons. I think very succinctly underscores the need of social work intervention in addressing the caste question. I'll repeat that point. We respect all persons, but we challenge belief and actions of those persons who devalue or stigmatize themselves or other persons. I think that clearly underlines, once again, the need of social work intervention in addressing some of the issues like caste. Second principle, promoting human rights. Social workers embrace and promote the fundamental and intellect and inalienable rights of all human beings. Social work is based on respect for the inherent dignity of all people and the individuals, their social and civil rights that flow from this. Social work often work with people to find an appropriate balance between competing human rights. I think that is a point to be underlined, because we all demand our human rights, but there's a competing human rights between people of different background, identity, but that needs to be balanced. Third, promoting social justice. So the third principle, which is directly connected to the issues of the marginalized communities. So challenging discrimination and institutional oppressions. Social workers promote social justice in relation to society generally and to the people with whom they work. So within that, promoting social justice, we need to draw special attention to the following points. Number one, respect for diversity. Every society has people from diverse background, so we need to value those diversity. Access to equitable resources, there is sharing of resources. Then challenging unjust policies and practices. Challenging unjust policies and practices. Definitely when it comes to practices, the caste practice can also be brought in directly. Then building solidarity. So the whole purpose of social justice is not to arouse kind of a cleavages in the society, but build solidarity within the society. Then promoting the rights to self-determinations. Here again, in social work, we have something called social actions. To what extent we use this method to right the wrong, it is $1 million question. But one of the principles is right to self-determinations. Every individual, every community to has the right to self-determination. They can protest against whatever injustice happening against them. Then promoting the right to participation in every activities of the society, respect for confidentiality and privacy, treating people as whole persons, not a member of any particular identity. There are two other things, but we don't go directly. There is also the ninth principle called professional integrity. I again want you to pay special attention to a few points of that. For example, social workers must hold the required qualifications and develop and maintain the required skills and competencies to their job. That is fine. We all agree. The point for our concern is social workers support peace and non-violence. In no way the social workers can justify conflict and violence against the weak, vulnerable section and the marginalized. And if you are truly committed to social worker, you are expected to make your contribution so that the society there is peace and harmony. Social workers must not allow their knowledge and skills to be used for inhumane purposes such as torture, military surveillance, terrorism, conversation. They should not use weapons in their professional capacities against people. Social workers must act with integrity. This includes not abusing their positions of power and relationship of trust with people that they engage with. The misuse of power, the social workers should supposed to refrain from. We can also say social workers acknowledge that they are accountable for their actions to the people they work with. So you can't do anything and get away with it. You are accountable to the people you work with. Social workers acknowledge, the social workers and their employing bodies work to create conditions in their workplace environments and in their countries where the principles of this statement, all these these ethical principles that we have listed, and those of their own national codes are discussed, evaluated, and upheld. That is an important point. Lastly, the implicit in our acceptance of this statement or ethical principles as social work practitioners, educators, students, and researchers is our commitment to uphold the core values and principles of social work profession as set out in the statement. So all that we have listed so far, if we claim that we are social workers, we are supposed to be committed to it, not just giving public lectures and in practice you just follow the opposite. And the core values of social work, of course, service is there, social justice, we have listed all those, dignity and worth of the person, importance of human relationship, integrity, competency. This is another way of reading out the social work. And when you consider what is ultimate the mandate of the social work, social work profession's core mandate include promoting social change, social development, social cohesion, and the empowerment and liberation of the people. I think I don't want to bore you with more than these things. So now we understand that if you are a social worker or if you are engaged in social work profession, either directly or indirectly, you are expected to commit yourself and adhere to all those principles I read out before you. And if you are double standard, perhaps morally you are disqualified to call yourself as a social worker. We are not, unfortunately, India, we are saying it is a mandate, but it is not mandate by law. So we need to have a law so that those who deviate from this can be corrected through legal means. Let us come to, we have been given 1 hour, so let us come to the caste question. We have now briefly discussed about what social work stands for. Let us see caste is. And Ambedkar's understanding of caste. We talk about what Ambedkar's ideal society. He says an ideal society should be mobile, should be full of channels for conveying a change taking place in one part to other parts. In an ideal society, there should be many interests consciously communicated and shared. There should be varied and free points of contact with other modes of association. In other words, there should be social endomesis. This is fraternity, which only another name for democracy. Democracy is not merely a form of government. It is primarily a mode of associated living, of conjoint communicated experience. It is essentially an attitude of respect and reverence towards fellow men. It's an attitude of respect and reverence to fellow men. I like to draw your attention. So number one is that ideal society should be mobile. It's not stuck to one particular line of thinking. And then we can't move and you are stuck and getting stagnated. But it should be full of channels for conveying a change taking place in one part of the society to the other parts. In an ideal society, there should be many interests consciously communicated and shared. If it is not, or any institution or any kind of policies, ideology that brings some kind of curtailment or a bottleneck to this change, that has to be dealt with. That's what an ideal society. Ambedkar further argues, modern science has shown that lumping together of individuals into a few sharply marked of classes, that we are putting together a huge number of populations into a class. It is not based on the qualities, attributes of those individuals, but merely on the basis of certain identity. Each confined to, and then we say, each confined to one particular sphere does injustice both to individual and to the society. Bringing division within the society on this basis, meaning lumping together a huge section of people purely on identity basis, we are doing injustice not only to the individual in the society, but to the society as a whole. The stratification of society by classes and occupation. So the stratification that we see today on the basis of their identity and occupation is incompatible with the fullest utilization of the qualities which so necessary for social advancement, and is also incompatible with the safety and security of the individual as well of society in general. So this lumping of individuals on the basis of their primordial identity is harmful both to the individual and to the society at large. That is the point he's making. So in the Ambedkar's ideal society, you have two things. Ambedkar talks about an ideal society that promotes individuals' well-being, collective well-being. But then he comes to the point that the caste society, what is the ideal of caste society? The ideal of caste society is nothing but what he calls as Chaturvarna. Ideal of caste society is Chaturvarna. Chaturvarna means 4 varna. And what is that? What are those principles? We have seen the principles of social work. We are now seeing principles of the Chaturvarna. The Chaturvarna principles. The society is divided on the basis of 4 classes, not through any scientific basis, merely by a story told by somebody. That's called Manu. And this theory is it's also called speculative theory, that there was a God who created the universe and who divided the society into 4 classes, and each class sprang from his own body, the creator God Brahma. So this story, in no way can be justified. To me, it's a very childish thing. Even a child will imagine better. But to say this, somebody sprang from mouth, somebody sprang from the shoulders, somebody from thighs, and some from the feet. And this speculative theory has also done another disastrous thing, that it's created when they find huge chunk of people in this country where Brahma did not think on those lines at that time when he wrote the story for the first time. Then he did not know how to actually rope in that huge chunk of people who don't believe in this ideology. Somehow we have to rope in there, and then he created another story. What I'm saying is not just my own understanding. That is the very question Dr. Ambedkar raised. So it is not my own hookup story. That a so-called thinking scholar of that time, Manu, did not find a better, decent, dignified way of giving explanation. And this man says they are illegitimate children. They are called Chandalas. To him, they are called Chandalas. Who are the Chandalas? They are the illegitimate children born to Brahmin men and Shudra women. Ambedkar goes further, saying, if one does a numerical calculation, even at that time, Ambedkar says the Brahmin constitute not more than 5%, whereas the Shudra population constituted over 52%. So the conclusion Manu has come to, saying that the Brahmin male and Shudra, Brahmin women and Shudra male produced a category called Ati Shudras or Panchamas. And what is their population? Again, Ambedkar says, so if the Panchamas constitute 16% population, even today's figure, he says that means 5% female of population of Brahmin, then over 52% male population belonging to the Shudra, they had an illicit relation. 50% men had an illicit relation with the 5% Brahmin women and produced 16% population. Ambedkar's question is how atrocious, how audacious, how inhuman this interpretation that Manu has come to. So he questioned that. Now, that speculative story of Brahma creating people, and not only people of India, he says people of universe. He creates the universe, means then Americans, Europeans, everybody is included in that population, perhaps. And the last conclusion he draws that the Chandalas are the illegitimate children born to Brahmin female and Shudra male. Now, whether this explanation of Ambedkar, whether the social workers accept this, whether social workers can, because they are committed to social change, social cohesion, development, liberation, freedom, whether it is acceptable to the social professions and social workers in particular. Ambedkar comes to his conclusion, his argument, saying that he looks at caste like this. Caste in India means, this Ambedkar statement, an artificial chopping off of the population into fixed and definite units, each one prevented from fusing into another through the custom of endogamy. In his analysis of number of definitions, in his essay on caste in India, he says he looked at various definitions given earlier and comes to the conclusion that the only typical of caste is endogamy. All other characters are there, universal, but the typical character of caste is endogamy, meaning not permitting a member of one particular caste marrying member of another caste. So that is that one has to marry only within one's own caste. So endogamy is the only character that is peculiar to caste, he says. A caste is an enclosed class. A class is an open caste. Caste is an enclosed class, meaning caste has all the characters of class. The class society also has its own prejudice. Caste society is an enclosed. The only difference between caste and class, where the caste is open, class is open, caste is closed. So there can be a upper class among the lower caste. There can be lower class among the lower caste. So within caste, class divisions is possible. So similarly, among the upper caste, there is also upper class and lower class. That is possible. But the class is open category means a Brahmin can become poor, can also become a rich, but he remains a Brahmin. Similarly, a Chandala or a so-called Dalits or Harijans or scheduled caste, whatever you call, or depressed classes, this person can also become richer or poor, but he remains a scheduled caste or a Chandala. So this is the only difference he makes, Ambedkar makes very clearly. How caste was created, according to Manu, is a story. A story who wrote, somebody created from different parts of his body. But Ambedkar, in his scientific analysis, he comes to the conclusion, the superposition of endogamy over exogamy. Superposition of endogamy over exogamy. That means the creation of caste. All these, historically, the society is always endogamy. If you look at the remnants of that, you can see in tribal society, a topo will not marry a topo. There is a clan exogamy was followed. Whereas in endogamy, you have to marry within your own caste. So historically, it is a clan endogamy. But then when the caste took shape, it has become fixed into one's own caste. And that is the creation of caste. Again, further analysis, as you all know, most of you have read this essay. The creation began from the Brahmins, because Ambedkar's statement nicely says, some closed the store, others found the door closed. Brahmins, being a superior, held very high in the society, they didn't want any intermingling by the other, so they closed the door. Since the one group which is so much of respect in the society, everybody emulated the same idea of closing the door, not letting others enter into that. And why that happened, again, Ambedkar says, that is basically what he called the uxorious customs, like forced widowhood, girl-child marriage, and sati. These three uxorious customs, very peculiar customs, inhuman customs, became prominent basically to protect the caste structures. Because then you all with the surplus women's theory, surplus men's theory, that there was a time the Kshatriya was the warring class, and that was the only class allowed to be a warrior, and most of them get killed in the war. As a result, their young women remain a widow. And so since they being the potential women, they have to find a partner. Of course, if they go above the caste leader, there is nobody because the population is very less. So they came one level below Vaishya, that is also a very meager population. So they started finding partner among the last class, that is called Shudra class. And there were perhaps cases of children born into such alliance. And then Manu comes to condemn that and writes all inhuman code of conduct, he calls on. So the basis on which caste rest, because one may give 100 other definitions of the origin of caste, but what is there in our mind, mind of the majority, is the Brahminic theory of caste, which means that Chaturvarna, which means Brahma created the division, which means Brahma created the division, Brahma created somebody superior, somebody inferior, Brahma created untouchability. That's what Chaturvarna principle. And then fixing this state, Ambedkar says, Shastra is the root cause, not nothing else. If one has to annihilate caste, you have to destroy the Shastra, which is a very, very serious thing. Unfortunately, a great patriot and nationalist, Mahatma Gandhi, how far he was ready. Whether Ambedkar says destroy the Shastra, which has direct connection, which is the root cause of basis on which, because Indians, by and large, we are religious-minded people. So anything sold in the name of religion and God, we don't question that because we take that as our dharma. And if any individual tries to challenge that, they are also targeted. Many times they are tortured and killed, lynched, and a number of killings you will get to know throughout India. So such an issue, which Ambedkar was fighting to address, we have Mahatma Gandhi saying, he says, Mahatma Gandhi's caste system is a natural order of the society. Caste system is a natural order of the society. And every Hindu must follow the hereditary profession. Listen carefully. Caste system is a natural order of the society, and every Hindu, therefore, must follow the hereditary profession. And prohibition of intermarriage between people of different varnas was prohibition of intermarriage between people of different varna was necessary for what? For a rapid evolution of soul. So intermarriage should be prohibited. That is, without which your soul cannot be attain moksha. That was, so he was really justifying that. Further, he says, how can Muslim remain one if he rejects Quran? Or a Christian remains a Christian if he rejects the Bible? If caste and varna are convertible terms, and if varna is an integral part of the Shastra, which defines Hinduism, I do not know how a person who rejects caste or a varna can call himself Hindu. So if you have to be a Hindu, according to Mahatma Gandhi, you must practice caste. You must adhere to caste-based occupations. You can't go beyond this. 1936 in Origins, Gandhi has written this. Ambedkar counters that. saying that caste is divisive and anti-national in spirit. How can people divided into thousands of castes can constitute a nation? You can't become a nation when you are divided into thousands of castes. Ambedkar believes that the fundamental principle of the modern democratic state is the recognition of the value of the individuals. On the one hand, lumping my individuals on the basis of primordial identity and fixing their identity, fixing their status, fixing their rights and duties on the basis of Varnashrama Dharma, on the basis of Chaturvarna as codified by Manu. Here Ambedkar says the fundamental principles of modern democratic state is the recognition of the individual, recognition of the value of the individuals, and the belief that as each individual has lent only one life, full opportunity should be accorded to each to attain his or her maximum development in that life. So here, when he say in that life, he rejects the generally what we call the karma theory upheld by even Mahatma Gandhi. He says specifically in that life opportunity should give, and not after this you can get promotion. The karma theory says whatever beating oppression takes place, you keep quiet, bear with it. God is watching. In the next birth you will be promoted. Dalit become Kshatriya, Vaishya, even Brahmin. So till that time you wait. But Ambedkar says opportunities should be accorded to every individual to maximize his or her potential in that very life. That is the point. So there is a direct contradiction what Ambedkar argues as to how to value individuals' liberty and how Gandhi promotes individual liberty in that manner. It is a direct contradiction. Now, whether between these two positions, where social work stands, where social work stand is very clear. The commitment of social work profession is very clear. It is reflected in the principles of social work, and they are the same world over. But social workers' position, especially Indian social workers. Now, I want to understand this point, Indian social workers. So the Indian, we tend to think Indian social worker. There is also another concept now we talk about indigenous social workers. Is there a difference between Indian social workers and indigenous social workers? And there is also concept I can say social workers in India. This also takes me to another thinking. When Ambedkar was debating on the preamble of the Constitution, he preferred the word "we the people of India," where the members of the Constitutional Assembly said, "No, why do you say we the people of India? Say we the Indians." He said, "We the Indians" is the better word. Why are you putting "we the people of India"? And Ambedkar argued, "We have not yet become Indians, my dear. We have not yet become Indians. We still remain Hindus, Muslims. We still remain Brahmins and Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Adishudra. We still remain Madrasis and Marathi and so on." So, and in order to move from we the people of India to we the Indians, we need to follow the certain ideals enshrined in the Indian Constitution. So similarly, there's a difference between Indian social workers and the social workers in India. Today, we argue that indigenous social worker, we tend to think that all Indians, when we say indigenous social worker, all Indians think alike, which is a gross violation, which is a completely different understanding of what social workers are. I can say to you, looking at what's happening in this country, they can say definitely there is a any social workers mean funding, and I mean even our chair was referring to. So any Christian missionary, of course, there is a lot of funding from European missionaries also, and they also get targeted in that process because there is some funding coming and so on. This is also reality. So when we say it, because they're looking at the social worker and social work profession as such, so there is a difference between Indian social workers in India, and indigenous social work. Professor, you are looking at the watch. How many minutes, sir? There, sir? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You are muted, sir. Okay. You are muted, sir. I'm not able to hear you.
No, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Vidya Chopagar will take
Thank you,
the
sir.
time.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
So
sir.
please go ahead, sir. Please.
Thank you, sir. Yeah,
Please go ahead as long as you want. No problem.
thank you. Nice of you, sir. Thank you, sir. So this concept of Indian social workers in India and indigenous social workers, I three different concepts coming in my mind. When the Indian social very general term in which everybody can be discussed about, but the moment you get to know from the government, there is indigenous social workers. The assumption of people who promote this concept, indigenous social worker, think that indigenous social workers uphold to one particular value, which is not true, because the tribal people in India have their own idea of what social work is, and they think, and their premise, everything is different. But the people from caste background, they have a different notion of social work, their priorities. Whereas there is also clearly these three concepts articulate three different ideological premises. By and large, a vast majority can be grouped under Gandhian social workers. There's also, you can say, Ambedkarian police social workers. Then also we can say that the tribal social workers. So when there are three different concepts, which one to follow? Is there a common platform which can bring all these together? Or at least there is scope for all these three to draw some commonalities and keep going in doing social work. Naturally, at this stage, then what kind of social work you do also determine largely on the basis of the different settings in which we operate. We have a number of social work settings. We see child and family and school settings, community settings, medical settings, psychiatric setting, mental health and military setting, geriatric settings, criminal justice settings, and so on. There are numerous settings. Have you ever thought about caste setting? CASTE. We have not reflected on what is known as what can be called a caste setting. The challenges of social workers working in the caste settings, we have not named it, we have not recognized it. We are just operating. But there is a caste setting. The kind of challenges emerging in these settings are never recognized by the social work fraternity till date. We have been only trying to hide. There is nothing kind. I remember my colleague Bodhi once said, it's not a classroom, it is a caste room. So definitely there is a caste setting. In the caste setting, work in that kind of setting. What kind of challenges social worker in caste setting would face? What kind of unique special skills those working in the caste setting need to equip themselves? What kind of a legal knowledge the people working in caste setting need to acquire? So this line of thinking has not emerged so far. It's a social work in caste setting, social work in tribal settings. We need to recognize that. In the absence of such a thing, do we have we say yes, then we have to go for something in between, which gives some scope for all of us to come together. When I see, we don't find any common platform except one, which again Ambedkar's contribution, that is the constitutional path. If you go by the Gandhian line of social work or Ambedkar line of social work or any other Western line of social work, and when you have numerous settings have not even certain ways like caste settings, you will face multiple challenges. And there is no other option. You need to sign up a social contract, which we call it as the Constitution of India. So the Constitution of India clearly says, clearly recognizes, as I said earlier, we are yet to become the Indians. So that is why we prefer to call ourselves we the Indians. What we want to achieve? We want to achieve social justice. justice of various kinds, social, economic, political. We want to achieve liberty. We want equality. Why we want to achieve justice, liberty, equality? Again, preamble says this is to achieve fraternity. Fraternity meaning oneness, community feeling. Be the Indians, that kind of a feeling. And Ambedkar, in his argument, very categorically explained this, that why liberty comes before equality and why equality comes before fraternity. And he clearly says, without liberty, even think, when there it comes, when Ambedkar talked about freedom of mind. These are all should become the core concept of social work values. Whether the freedom of mind is that we call, other Western scholars talked about something called agency. But the first time this freedom of mind concept has been introduced by Ambedkar. Now, but this freedom of mind has its own typical unique meaning that has to become part of social work curriculum. Because social work, there is its own line of thinking, which is more in the Gandhian. I'm not denying Gandhian should not be there, but the freedom of mind, when Gandhian thinking says, if there are atrocity plays, you bear with it, next birth you will be promoted. Do we uphold to this kind of a mindset? Or Ambedkar says there is a freedom of mind. People should be allowed to think rationally, logically. And that is why in India, we don't consider even atrocity as atrocity, because we think this is our tradition है, हम उसको हमारे ऊपर अत्याचार हो रहा है, या अत्याचार नहीं है, ये तो भगवान का आशीर्वाद है हमारे लिए, अगले अगर चुप रहेगा तो अगले जन्म में हमको प्रमोशन मिल जाएगा. This kind of understanding, this is not freedom of mind. The freedom of mind is that you accept something with valid reasons to support it, otherwise we don't accept. So that is what the freedom of mind. So freedom of mind, if it is really working, then you cannot accept speculative theories. You can't accept speculative rescue, all those things. When you have numerous incidents within the religious places, the rape and murder happening place, unfortunately, God does not get up and protect those women. So the concept of freedom of mind, that has to be promoted. When we generally say liberty, we don't think about freedom of mind. Liberty, in my opinion, probably what Ambedkar had in his mind, it is liberty basically means freedom of mind. So liberty to settle wherever you want to settle, to pursue whatever education you want. It is not merely that. Liberty also means liberty to think rationally and logically, which is missing. Although Ambedkar, as elsewhere explained, we need to make that as core principles of social work, part of the code of conduct of social work. So Ambedkar says clearly, fraternity or the feeling of oneness, we Indians, that kind of a feeling will emerge as a reality only when there is liberty to every individual's liberty to 1, 2, 3, 4, liberty to whatever you want to do. And there is no liberty. When there is no liberty, you cannot even move towards equality. So liberty precedes equality. There is an order in which Ambedkar explained that. He calls it as a trinity. Liberty, equality, and fraternity cannot be in isolation, cannot be separated. They are always together. Although they are always together, there is a hierarchy in which he has placed them. Liberty, then equality, liberty and equality together, then fraternity is possible. If we have any institutions in the society, any system in the society, or any law in the society does not permit individual to experience liberty, which does not allow them to experience equality, only the feeling of oneness, the feeling of fraternity can never become reality. So the question of, nation building comes to a friend in my mind at this point in time. You can't build a nation by denying liberty, by denying equality. If you deny these two, fraternity will not become reality. And if the fraternity is not there, we the Indians, we are still continue to be the people of India. Ambedkar's prediction at that time that we have to walk a long way so that those who do not want to come with us will also come one day. that the video is also there, Ambedkar voice itself is there. Why is it allow liberty so equally to every individual? Because by and large, our primordial identity and status determines every walks of life. And further, he says democracy. Ambedkar. Now, all these things, unless the social workers understand its linkages, you will be just doing like any other fellow. There is no need of, you may be doing social work, not social work. Because social work says help the people help themselves, which basically means people have potential. They can meet their own needs, provided you help them to help themselves. That very basic understanding that the people do, every individual, irrespective of what caste, gender, regional, linguistic background one comes from, every individual has that basic potential. If we realize that, half of the problem is solved. But we say we are social workers. Unfortunately, many of them are still hold, ye to Dalit hai bechara, hum log unko thoda help karenge. This attitude, this paternalistic attitude, that it is based on your understanding that inko kuch nahi aata hai, they can't, they are bechara. If you operate, if you remain a social worker with this understanding, you are unfit to be a social worker. It is immoral to call oneself as a social worker. That's what I mean. You are in a way, you are going against the spirit of the Constitution. Those who go against the spirit of Constitution, I don't mind even going to the extent when somebody is against the Constitution. What do you call it? You want to call it anti-national, anti-Constitution? You decide. So. And the liberty equality, there is one important point in Buddha's article, very important point, because many, how much of liberty to give, how much of equality to give, where you draw a line, that's one important point Ambedkar brought out, and he has brought out from his Buddha's speech. He says, unlimited liberty, Constitution says liberty, equality should be given so that fraternity emerges a reality. But what extent equality? What extent liberty? He quotes from Buddha. Unlimited liberty destroys equality. So liberty, if unlimited liberty means if I have the freedom, liberty, I will even go and kill somebody, rape somebody. That is not the liberty he is talking about. So he cautions us what kind of a danger the liberty is unlimited. So unlimited liberty destroyed equality, and absolute equality left no room for liberty. Unlimited liberty destroyed equality, and absolute equality left no room for creativity. So yes, liberty is necessary, but it has to be within a limit. Absolute equality left no room for creativity. So in order to give scope for some individuals, they are very creative. Yes, you give little more. You don't say I eat 1 kilo, should also eat 1 kilo rice. There may be people who may eat 2 kilo rice. Don't go by the size of the individuals. So that equality should not be in that terms. Maybe that equity concept is a better term. So liberty, equality has become a core aspect of social work. And the Constitution, just a few more minutes. Just, I want to quote something for you. What to do with the caste? Ultimately, that question comes, what